there's a problem here that we need to work on and get the answer. Someone asks you to give the differences between an endocrine system and a nervous system. So the differences, we can talk about the similarities or similarities between a nervous system and an endocrine system. So I'll first be able to give just a brief explanation of these two types of systems. One is this: when someone talks about a nervous system, this person has to end up subdividing his description or explanation in two very important ways. Of course, these are the two systems mainly used by the body to provide communication between one part of the body and the other. And of course, these systems can bring about a response if a stimulus can be able to trigger and be able to facilitate the sending of a message. Okay? A nervous system will consist of two very important parts. You're what you call the central nervous system. And I have said there are two ways in which the body can communicate between its parts. That is the nervous system or the endocrine system. If someone talks about the nervous system, you should be referring to the central nervous system or the peripheral nervous system. So that at the end of the day, the central nervous system consists of two very, very, very important parts, what we call the brain and the spinal cord. You see? And these are referred to as the parts where there's what you call interpretation of the messages getting sent. So at this point, we have the central nervous system consisting of the brain and the spinal cord. And of course, we are told that the brain has three very, very, very important parts. We have what you call the forebrain, consisting of the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the cerebellum, the pituitary gland. You see? The midbrain consisting of what you call the corpora quadrigemia, or mediating between the forebrain and the hindbrain. We have what you call the hindbrain, consisting of the cerebellum, the pons, and what you call the medulla oblongata, that facilitate the aspect of controlling the rate of breathing. So the spinal cord will actually form part of the most important part. Why? Because it mediates between the posterior end of the body and the anterior end of the body, now the brain. So any messages that come from the posterior end of the body are able to get conveyed to the brain via the spinal cord. So that a similarity between these two will consist of three very important meninges surrounding those two very important parts of the central nervous system. We have what you call the dura, the pia, and the arachnoid. Dura, pia, and arachnoid can be able to actually cover these two very important parts of the central nervous system. So we have what you call the dura, we have what you call the pia, and the arachnoid. Okay, and if someone talks about the peripheral nervous system, we should be referring to very important part of the nervous system, which will consist of one, the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves. And of course, the spinal nerves are concentrated along the spinal cord, mediating between the brain and the posterior end of the body. The cranial nerves are 12 pairs of nerves found within the neck and the head region. The oculomotor, the trigeminal, we have what you call the sympathetic, the vagus, you see, the auditory, you see. There are so many nerves that can actually form what you call the cranial nerves. Even the optic nerve that communicates or sends messages to the brain, or allows the messages along it to the brain for interpretation. So the central nervous system is the center of interpretation. It consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of what we call the nerves or the neurons that can carry the messages. They can either be able to get found and the lower part of the body, just below the head and the neck, called the spinal nerves, or the cranial nerves found in the neck and head region, which are 12 pairs of nerves. So, and of course, if you talk about the endocrine system, this will consist of two very important parts. We are going to call the organs, okay? And you can also be able to have the blood, together the blood vessels that carry those hormones. You see, this maximizes on the use of electrical signals and the neurons or nerves to provide communication, mediating between the receptor organs, the effector organs, and the central nervous system. This works on the basis of one, the receptor parts of the body, the effector organs, and of course the central nervous system. And they cannot work in isolation because in the absentia of the nervous system, the endocrine system cannot work. You get the point? For example, if the blood passes through the brain and there tends to be a high level of sugar in the blood, the brain senses, it gets triggered, it is actually able to get stimulated so that it actually provides a nervous communication to the pancreas to increase the secretion of insulin hormone. When insulin is secreted by the pancreas, the insulin gets carried by the blood to the muscles of the body in the liver, where there is an excess conversion of the excess glucose and the bloodstream back to glycogen, which gets stored in the animal tissues. When the blood passes through the brain and the brain gets triggered, realizing that there's a low level of sugar in the blood, what happens? An impulse is again produced. It actually gets transmitted along the nerve fiber to the pancreas. There is an increased secretion of glucagon hormone, which excessively converts the glycogen stored back to glucose to raise the level of glucose. And you see, so the organs are involved in secreting these hormones. The blood and the blood vessels can facilitate the transportation of these hormones. And of course, you are what we call the effector organs. So this can be the receptor organs and effector organs, of course. So these effector organs can also be the receptor organs. Get the point? So, and at the end of the day, I've said that this cannot work in isolation. It has to actually work in a coordinated manner with what you call the nervous system. And what could be the possible similarities between these? And of course, these organs can be of several types. We are what you call compound. So we are what you call compound organs. Compound organs can, for example, have an example like the pancreas. It secretes hormones aided in what you call regulatory functions in the body of a human being, and again secretes digestive juices, the pancreatic juice, that consists of the pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase, what you call the trypsinogen, and the sodium hydrogen carbonate. Those are the components of what you call the pancreatic juice produced by the pancreas. So the pancreas can serve two very important functions. One, production of hormones for homeostasis, and of course, secretion of digestive juices made in the breakdown of food when the food just leaves the stomach via an exit called the pyloric sphincter. And we have also what we call the endocrine hormones. We have, of course, the ductless hormones. And of course, in this case, that means those hormones are secreted by glands which are ductless. So glands can either have ducts or they can be ductless. So endocrine, then exocrine. So compound glands, organs, compound glands, endocrine glands, and exocrine glands are the three main types of glands associated with the endocrine system, facilitating the secretion of what? Hormones, to actually bring about a steady state and internal constant environment for the purpose of making these organisms to survive. And we have so many regulatory functions that the body can work when this endocrine system is involved directly. So ductless, then those with the ducts, then those that can be able to produce both digestive juices and of course hormones, or have other very important biological functions. Now, like the way you are actually been able to get told that these can have alpha and beta cells, which can facilitate the production of what? Pancreatic juice and as well as hormones. Yeah, and of course, we have quite a good number of these glands that can produce these hormones. Of course, you have actually been told of the adrenal gland. This secretes a hormone like the adrenaline that prepares the body for a fight or flight if there's an emergency. We have what you call the pituitary gland. We can either have the anterior part of the pituitary or the posterior part of the pituitary, secreting quite a good number of hormones, like the antidiuretic hormone or the vasopressin hormone. We have reproductive hormones and other hormones. And like the oxytocin hormone that facilitates the milk letdown. You have the prolactin, the oxytocin as well that facilitates the contraction of the muscles of the uterus to bring about birth or parturition. You see, and quite a good number of these hormones can actually get produced only when triggered by the nervous system, not in the absence of this system, which is called the nervous system. And so we have the adrenal gland, the pituitary gland. I've talked about the pancreas as a gland as well. It can also produce hormones which can facilitate this aspect. The ovary, more specifically, having something called the corpus allata, can produce a hormone called progesterone that can facilitate maintenance of pregnancy up to a maximum of 4 months before the placenta can actually get formed to take over that role of maintaining pregnancy in an expectant woman, mother. And of course, literally, you have actually heard of the duodenum being able to produce two very important hormones that can trigger the pancreas and the liver to produce one pancreatic juice, then two bile juice. We what we call the cholecystokinin, and secretin. These are also hormones secreted by the wall or the lining of the duodenum to facilitate the secretion of bile juice by the liver, by the gallbladder, and by the bile duct, and as well the pancreas by the pancreatic duct secreting what we call the pancreas related juice or the pancreatic juice to the duodenum to facilitate digestion in the upper part of the small intestine. You must have heard of the testis, which secretes a hormone like the testosterone. So the testis is the main reproductive part that one manufactures or actually facilitates the production of sperm cells through a process called meiosis. And of course, it also produces male reproductive hormones, generally referred to as androgens. And an example is testosterone. Testosterone. We've talked about the ovary as a very important gland as well. It produces a hormone like estrogen, responsible for the secondary sexual characteristics in the females and other functions like repair and healing of the lining of the uterus just after menstruation has actually occurred, or the coming out of the menses, which is the tissue debris that are actually formed initially, preparing the wall of the uterus for the endometrium for implantation. And because the egg was not fertilized, that lining that actually grew up, the lining of the uterus must be shed together the blood that actually accumulated in the lining of the uterus. So, who repairs and heals the uterus after the shedding of that lining together the blood which had accumulated? It is the hormone produced by the ovary, and that hormone is called the estrogen. And of course, we have what we call the follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone, bringing about the menstrual cycle in females, and of course, facilitating the secondary sexual characteristics in males and carrying out other roles as far as the menstruation is concerned. And these hormones are able to facilitate that role when the nervous system has triggered the endocrine system to secrete these hormones. So, what are the similarities between these two? As we get back to our question, they all provide a means of communication in the body of a human being. And they all provide a means of communication in the body of a human being. They all involve sending a message or transmitting a message due to a particular stimulus or a particular response. If someone pinches my skin, that's a stimulus. The receptor cells of the skin will actually be able to get triggered transmitting a nerve impulse along the sensory neuron, the central nervous system. So they all involve transmitting a message along this aspect of either getting triggered or due to a response. For example, if that pinching or that pricking of the finger gets taken as pain by the receptor cells in the finger, that message gets carried along the sensory neuron to the central nervous system. Now, for example, the gray matter of the spinal cord. There, that impulse gets transferred to the relay neuron via a synapse or a neurojunction. Then from a relay neuron to the gray matter to the motor neuron via another synapse or neurojunction. Then from the motor neuron to the effector organ, now the biceps and the triceps. So I'll actually be able to withdraw my forearm from that source of pain. So transmitting an impulse as a result of transmitting a communication as a result of a response or a triggering aspect of a stimulus. They all also involve transmission of a chemical. For example, in as far as the nerves are concerned, you are told that the nerves have these entities, they are called dendrites. So between dendrites, is what we call the transmission of a chemical called the acetylcholine. Acetylcholine, acetylcholine is a chemical that facilitates nerve impulse transmission. A chemical that facilitates nerve impulse transmission. And this chemical is actually able to get found in the presynaptic node, in synaptic vesicles. So when an impulse reaches in this nerve, the synaptic vesicles are stimulated to reach this other end of this synaptic node. The one referred to the presynaptic membrane. They actually get to that point of releasing what we call an acetylcholine, facilitating what we call depolarization. And that can actually transmit an impulse. And as far as this endocrine system is concerned, we are transmitting hormones, which are actually chemical messages. So they actually have to get that one having a similarity where they all involve transmitting chemicals. And acetylcholine is the transmission of a nerve impulse between two neurons or nerve cells, and transmission or transportation of hormones, which are chemical messengers from one part of the body to another by the blood. Another similarity is that these two systems bring about a survival response in the body of a human being. I was pinched, I had to withdraw my hand. I had an excess of glucose in the body, that level of glucose I to restore to normalcy. So they bring about a means of survival. They bring about a survival response in the body of a living organism. And I've told you, they must work hand in hand to bring about a particular response. So these are just some of the similarities we'll be able to get between these two types of systems.